Hey, this is the first video ever, Entropy and you. I think we're online, but I'm not sure, so we'll know afterwards. I don't even know if I can check it while it's... Hey, welcome. So we're going to show you around the studio here and maybe make our first video ever. Let's walk over to the wall, shall we? So why are we here? Why am I here? Why did I spend all this time and energy into presenting this diagram here? And it's because ever since I was a child, I had questions about how and why we're here, and are we alone? And such questions like that. It turns out I'm not the only one having these questions, but today we have answers, like real answers, like physical answers and thermodynamics answers. And I guess I'll start with my main man, Jeremy England here. So in 2013, apparently, and he's a real professor. He's done some real things. He's a PhD, and I didn't know how much he influenced me until I kind of read this thing here. So the biophysicist Jeremy England made waves in 2013 with a new theory that cast the origin of life as an inevitable outcome of thermodynamics. His equations suggested that under certain conditions, groups of atoms will naturally restructure themselves so as to burn more and more energy, facilitating the incessant dispersal of energy and the rise of entropy, or disorder of the universe. England said that this restructuring effect, which he calls dissipation-driven adaptation, fosters the growth of complex structures, including living things. The existence of life is no mystery or lucky break, he told Quanta in 2014, but rather follows from general physical principles and should be as unsurprising as rocks rolling downhill. And I really like that because it made me think. So we all know that entropy means that we're going from order to disorder, and yet we are highly ordered organisms, like trillions of cells working together, having evolved over billions of years to look like what you're watching today. And so how do we get from this disorder to order? Jeremy England just said it's like a bunch of rocks rolling down a hill, but it sounds more like these rocks are rolling uphill. So I spent so much time trying to figure this out. And for this, we're going to go over here and kind of explain this diagram, which is the new logo on our channel, Entropy and You. And so this is a Big Bang. And everything goes from order to disorder. But on the way there, it turns out, it wants to go to disorder as efficiently and quickly as possible. And it turns out that in order to get there the quickest and most efficiently, structures emerge that facilitate the increase of entropy. And I don't know if that made sense right then and there, but it's a huge key to our understanding of ourselves, of what we're doing here, and if we're alone in the universe. And so I've developed, based on all of this, the concept of Optimally Dissipative Configuration, ODC, and I call it a universal and unifying law. And we'll get back to the atomizer here in a little bit, but let's go towards our board and talk some more about this whole ball rolling down a hill thing. So it took a while, but so the entropy wants to go from order to disorder, and somehow structures emerge. And the key to solving this is thinking of it not so much as the ball rolling uphill, but more so that the hill is always increasing. And that was a revelation to me. And this hill increasing means that, for example, on Earth, when the sun bombards the Earth with energy, there's pockets of potential energy that accumulate. So, and pockets of order. And so if there was somehow a reaction that facilitated the dissipation of that order, like in cyanobacteria and us with the fossil fuels, then that's what we mean, I think, when he says it's as inevitable as rocks rolling down a hill, because you get all this potential that needs to go downhill. So as we're testing our system here, there's something that I would like to do. I hope we are on. And let me pause this. I think I can. No, pause that. Okay. Sorry. All right. So, and we wrote this book. Well, I wrote this book called The Symphony of Entropy, available on Amazon. And in it, I talk about this thought experiment that I've thought about since I was a kid. And it's that thing where, let's say you have a Boeing 747. So how does that, can you press this? No, damn. Pause that. How do we go from us building a 747 and having intelligence to do so, and the airplane is, again, millions of parts intricately put together to have a purpose to serve the human, how does, with that analogy, the human serve whatever the question mark here is? And, pause cam, I think I did it. And the answer to that is entropy. So the increase of entropy. It turns out that complex structures such as us, and this diagram here is two Earths, one without humans, one with humans, and it turns out that the one with humans was able to, or life in general, was able to release a lot of that potential energy that the sun and other things have given it. And that's how it's like a ball rolling down a hill. I'm probably giving you a lot today, but this channel itself and what I'm doing right now is part of the process of evolving the channel and my teaching method, because I'm new at teaching and you're probably new at the concept. And so over time, it's going to get more efficient and tighter and more smooth, and then maybe I can speak more eloquently to the camera. And so there's an efficiency there, there's an intelligence to it. And what drives that is the fact that I would prefer, all things being equal, that this would be a great show, a great channel, having lots of subscribers, and maybe training myself for a future documentary or something like that. So we're going to leave this there a little bit. The 1, 2 here are the first two laws of thermodynamics. The one says that we can't create or destroy things. The second one is entropy, that everything goes from order to disorder. So I would put this kind of concept or theory over at 2.1, meaning that the energy and force of the universe is this flow from order to disorder, but by adding the ODC, Optimally Dissipative Configuration, to that formula, we have entropy plus ODC equals, well, life. And the idea there is that the S, entropy, is the force of the universe, the force of the order to disorder, and the ODC gives it structure and direction. And I think this is what's new in our understanding of how and why we're here. So now for fun, we're going to go to the holodeck. I'm checking my microphone, seems to be working. And so I am still here at the old building, and let's see if we can zoom in on that a little bit. And so this channel used to be the Days Post-Apocalyptic World, so I am still here, and this is a nice hurricane. And so one of the things I'd like to show is, let's say we drop some ink into a glass of water or some dye. So intuitively, we kind of know that eventually it's going to be all dark or whatever color your dye is. And so that's intuitive, and that's a good analogy for the Big Bang going towards entropy, and in trillions of years, we're going to be nothing but evenly spaced. We call it the heat death, but that's in infinite amounts of time compared to where we are right now. We're actually right at the beginning, relatively speaking, of the age of the universe at 3.8 billion years, and we're not even this far into the whole thing, actually, I would say. Let's see if this works. I can go backwards, maybe around here or here, and then the future would be when everything's black. But as you can see, we already have structures forming, and these structures look a lot like, well, first of all, they are structures, and the reason they form like that and they look complex is because that's the optimally dissipative configuration. So everything we see around us is as it is because that's the most efficient way to go from order to disorder. And what I like about this also, then we're going to go to And so what I like about these paints going in water is that if you look at it, you see the flow, and you start maybe seeing some of these like nebulae that created us actually. And zoom in, and we're going to come into our Orion nebulae. So how do we go from, and you see a swirl starting to form there in the back. And so we're going to now go to the atomizer. Let's see if we can do that. The atomizer to wall. Turn this guy off. Hello. And we're going to move over here. I have no idea if anybody's watching. Maybe there's a way I can see if there's people online. Maybe for the next video, but today there's probably nobody watching, and this is more for like my training. And what we're going to do is, so what this is a simulator of like pre-life Earth. And it's to demonstrate how you've got all these atoms and molecules everywhere on the surface and deep into the oceans. And this is meant to represent, for example, the head of a pin. Very tiny, if you can imagine a head of a pin. Millions and millions of atoms and molecules exist on that head of a pin. And imagine that head of a pin multiplied by the entire surface and depth of the planet. So this times trillions and trillions of times. And what happens every moment in time is that these molecules and atoms constantly move around and form themselves into the optimally dissipative configuration in such a way that if there was a potential of energy to harness, to release or absorb, it would actually automatically configure into that. And this is what we're about to witness here. And the adjustment that I've made for this is that it's so noisy that I'm going to press a button here, and it's going to turn off my microphone and put on some music for about 30 seconds as we watch this. Okay, I think we just made it. And so every time we do this, we get a different outcome, right? And this is a relatively simple, let's go back to this view. This is a relatively simple concept where it's just bowling balls with a few different magnets arranged on them so that and there we have a cat enjoying the ping pong ball. So this is a very relatively simple process, and it's meant to illustrate how even a simple process where there's only one driving force of the vibrating of the table acting on it, after a few seconds, we're witnessing configurations that have never ever been made before or never again. That's how the chaos theory works, where small initial conditions with a driving force, you get ultimately exponentially different outcomes every time. And this is a new way of thinking about how and why we came along over billions of years, as long as it's a stable environment and we're in the Goldilocks zone of the sun, where there's so much going on. We're being bombarded by all sorts of waves, physical waves and audio waves and radio waves. And I'm going to pause the camera as soon as we get to this angle here. And audio waves and infrared, visible, X-rays, gamma rays. So imagine this times trillions of times being bombarded by all sorts of driving forces that ultimately things evolve into ways that potential energy would be released. Oh, here's the angle I was looking for. Okay, so I don't know if this worked, but so we're going to call it for now. This particular, we're going to go back to the desk, see if it worked. I really don't know if it worked, but this is I plan to do this pretty much every other day or as needed and answer our questions. This is brand new for so many people, and teaching it is new for me, and I hope you enjoyed this first video. And is there a way for me to tell if there's anybody here? What if I turn on YouTube? Ooh, it goes on live here. And ooh, it goes on live here. I don't see any chat or anybody joining us or anything, which is fine. Ooh, I think we're still on live here. Okay, so let's do the chat or anybody Galileo joining us or anything, which is fine. Actually, I think we're still so what we're doing here. Okay, so let's do the chat or anybody Galileo very much joining us or anything, which is fine. Actually, so what we're doing here. Okay, so let's do the chat or anybody Galileo very much to be Dean. So what we're doing here. Okay, so let's do the chat or anybody Galileo very much to be Dean. So what I'm introducing here with ODC Optimally Configuration, not that. So what I'm introducing here with our biggest obstacle is the fact that when we talk about. So what I'm introducing here with our biggest obstacle here is the fact that when we talk about. So what I'm introducing here with our biggest obstacle here is the fact that when we talk about. So what I'm introducing here with our biggest obstacle here is the fact that when we talk about. So what I'm introducing. You may not be open to our biggest obstacle discovery is the fact that when we talk about. So what I'm you may not be open to our biggest obstacle discovery is the fact that when we talk about. So what I'm you may not be open to our biggest obstacle discovery is the fact that astronomy is the epicenter of the universe or our solar system. Astronomy is the epicenter of the universe or our solar system. So astronomy they made these discoveries of the universe or our solar system. There's not really a lot to talk about it or present it. They made these discoveries. There's not really a lot to talk about it or present it. They made these discoveries. It doesn't seem like there's not really a lot to talk about it or present it. They made these discoveries. It doesn't seem like there's not really a lot to talk about it or present it. So we feel that in the same way there's not really a lot to. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's physical explanation. I think it's a huge topic. Why are we here? So we feel that in the same way there's take that into consideration. Why are we here? So we feel so take that into consideration. Why are we here? Also maybe so you can see that everyone had to take that into consideration. Also maybe so you can see that everyone had to take that into consideration. Self also maybe so. But I also set that aside when I'm talking about the self. Those are but I also set that aside when I'm talking they're not different for every human. All humans want to see those are but I also set that aside when they will come up they're not physically different for every human. Humans want to see signs. They will come up and they physically different. I'm not sure everybody humans want to see signs that are understanding. I hear a lot that people might even think that science they physically different. I'm not sure everybody humans. And that will be the final test for today. I hear a lot that people in this work science they physically different. Great, because sure everybody in the future I can acknowledge all of your comments and questions and talk about issues of the day and relate them back to ODC Optimally Dissipative Configuration work. They physically different. Great. in the future, I will acknowledge all of your comments and questions and talk about issues of the day and relate